think that's a good precursor on what's to come. So my name is Vanessa, and I went to school with Kelly, your fearless teacher. I went to Samuel Merritt University in Oakland. We did the accelerated program. I'm not used to talking on camera, so I apologize if this is awkward. Okay, so I wrote a little script. Hope I'll stay on track. I am a home health nurse, and I'm also certified in wound and ostomy. It used to be, they call people WOCNs, which was wound, ostomy, continence nursing. And what I'm finding is more people are just doing the wound and ostomy, and continence is kind of going to the wayside. So officially, I am a certified wound ostomy nurse, so a CWON. I first wanted to tell you a little bit about how I came to home health. I didn't know home health even existed when I was in school. I think Kelly showed you a picture of us kind of like jumping on each other's backs the first day of clinicals. And I was super lucky to get just set up with the most amazing group in my cohort. And we have, I think it's like a 10-year long text thread that's still going. I love the people I went to school with, and I love the opportunity of going to school and becoming a nurse. I never thought it would be possible. And I guess it is, because I do it almost every day. How I came to home health. So when I graduated, they were ushering out Obamacare, and I had a real hard time finding a job upon graduation. It took me about 9 months to find something. I wanted to work in the emergency department or in the ICU. I wanted something that was flashy and intense and, all the glitz and glamour. And I ended up in like kind of the polar opposite end, in the very subacute world of home health. So went to school, did my preceptorship in the ED, loved working codes, and graduated, and there were no jobs. And I had applied everywhere. There were no new grad programs starting. All hospitals were kind of on hiring freezes because they didn't know how Obamacare was going to affect their budgets. I was traveling all over the place, different states, to try and get in their new grad programs. And because I was from California, they just correctly assumed that I wanted to use their new grad program to cut my teeth in nursing, and then I'd come back to California where I'd make more money, which was my plan. So it's kind of stuck. It was a really, really dark period. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because I know that when you're graduating, it may be during a recession, and you may find yourself in a similar situation where you can't find work, but do what you got to do until something opens up. Yeah. So I ended up, because I had this fancy nursing degree, and my grandma had a little mini stroke, little TIA. So I went to go live with her. And while she was recovering, she had a home health nurse. And that's when I first saw that home health was a thing. This nurse came in and saw me sitting in my pajamas around 2 p.m. I shared with her my plight, and she said, if you want a job, I could probably help you. So I ended up working for this really not well put together home health agency. And another person that was in our cohort with Kelly was also in the similar situation of not being able to find work. And so she came in with me too. So we both navigated this agency and started learning for ourselves what the Medicare guidelines were to keep us compliant. That morphed into us writing the nursing PMP, or I guess, the hiring manual for this place. And I very quickly moved up to upper management. And I was in charge of a lot of people, and it was very scary. But did that for a while. Backtracking a little, I kind of became a nurse to specifically work for Kaiser. I love Kaiser. I've been a Kaiser patient my whole life. I have had friends that have worked for Kaiser. I happily wanted to wear the golden handcuffs. So I had been trying to get into Kaiser any way I could, and this was a subcontractor for Kaiser. So I navigated the Kaiser system through the subcontractor for about 3 years. And at the end of that term, I knew that I didn't really want to be in management anymore. And so I applied for Kaiser up here in Sonoma County, And it took many, 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 many months and tries, and eventually I got in. And I'm so happy I work for Kaiser now, because the 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 hoops that I had to jump through for hiring are actually a great thing, because everybody else had to jump through those same hoops as well. And I have a very, very strong team. The nurses that I work with, the doctors that I work with are all superb. Kaiser has amazing benefits. I can't speak more highly of my employer. So that's my plug. So I've talked about myself for 5 minutes and 35 seconds. So points to take away from that: don't lose heart if you can't find a job. Come work for Kaiser. It's really nice. And I knew this was going to be a little scattered. So how I came into wound care, because you're studying wound care, that's what you really want to know, right? I tell you my personal story because I'm always interested in other personal stories, but I'm sorry if you didn't want to hear that. So when I got hired on with this home health agency, I noticed that there was a lot of need for wound care and home health. A lot of need for wound care everywhere. Wound care is super, I mean, if you want a guaranteed job, go into wound care. They will hunt you down. At the time, I think there were only 5,000 wound nurses in the United States. And I, through home health, became terrified. I became a wound nurse because I was terrified. I was seeing things that I was in over my head. I didn't know how to treat this. I didn't know how to prevent these things. I didn't know how to identify them. I didn't know how to treat them. I didn't know what resources I needed to help these people heal. And so I started learning about wounds so that for my own practice, I was a little safer. And that led me to teaching people about wounds. And then I just found out that wounds are fascinating and super rewarding. And so, and then ostomies kind of go hand in hand with that. There's differences in both. I won't go too much into it, but what really made me want to become certified was I had a urostomy patient when I was in home health, and he was not counseled before his surgery on what he would be losing when he lost his bladder and prostate. He couldn't get a bag to stick. And because he couldn't get a bag to stick and he wasn't prepared for what was to come after his surgery, he was suicidal. This man was going to end his life because he couldn't imagine living a life soaked in urine, which was how he was living. And through my own education and the resources that I implemented for him, I was able to change all of that, to get a bag to stick to, I mean, it was just, I tend to be a little MacGyver-y in general. And it was just like the ultimate nursing MacGyver-ness of like, oh, I could take this, put this together and fix this person. And it was pretty much the best feeling in the world. And I'm like, I want to do that over and over and over. So I went to the first ever cohort of wound and ostomy at San Jose State. I went to San Francisco State too, but for something else. So San Jose State, two of the women who run that program graduated from the Emory program in Atlanta. And this was the only program that was being offered on the West Coast. So I was in that very first one. It was great. I learned a lot, and I also loved like writing those letters after my name. There was something very like entitled about it, you know. Vanessa Azzarello, RN, BSN, CWON. Let's add all the letters. Now I'm like too lazy to do all of that, but it felt really good in the beginning. So that's my own thing. Another thing I wrote down here, I was not an A student. I've never been an A student. If I'm getting A's, I'm trying way too hard and my life is unbalanced. I think the biggest like piece of advice I could give and I received was we got this like I think on the first day of orientation of nursing school, which was B's make degrees. B's make degrees. A B is fine. If you have kids, if you have extracurricular activities, if you have a life, and you know, if you can get A's, fantastic, go for it. But for me, if I'm getting A's, I'm sacrificing something else that's really important in my life, which is usually like sleep or eating well or exercising or socializing with people or doing some self-care. So that's a little pearl of wisdom. Don't try and be the best. Just try and be. Okay, so the most confusing areas in wound care are identification. So like knowing it's a wound, like especially with pressure ulcer staging, it's super confusing. You can't go backwards, you can only go forwards. And I can get really into detail on all of that if Kelly wants me to. This is kind of a general overview. So identifying when you have a wound, before even that, prevention. So like, how are you going to prevent certain types of wounds from happening? It's the worst feeling when someone gets a wound on your watch and it was totally preventable, because like we're supposed to like do no harm. And how to chart things. Like, what is that? Like, yeah, that wound looks like a purple balloon, but you can't write purple balloon because then they'll think you're dumb. Well, you can actually write purple balloon. Yeah, sometimes I like write, you know, like feces looks like soft serve ice cream with oatmeal, you know, like just write what you see. So identification, prevention, how to chart stuff, like what are the keywords you can use, and the treatment selections. And again, I don't know a whole lot for LVN. I do know that when I read the most of the wound patients seen in the wound clinic at Kaiser are treated by LVNs. And so they chart just like a nurse charts, an RN charts. And I don't really know the difference between RN and LVN because when someone's treating a patient, I don't really care what their certifications are. I just care what their knowledge is. And some LVNs are pretty dang smart and know a lot more than it's about your specialty, right? Someone who sticks around wounds a lot is going to know a lot more than the ER nurse. So this is like my favoriteest book in the whole world when it comes to wound care. And it looks like it's for kids. It ain't. So I guess kids could read it. They might be taken a little by surprise with some of the photos in here. But out of all the books that I've had, fat, huge textbooks with small fine print, this book here, it's not even that it's the most, you know, it's the cutest book, but it has the best information in it. Everything. Like, you can probably become a wound nurse just with this one book. I love this book so much. Okay, so I'll share with you the IBSN in like a subsequent link or something. I don't know how computers work. Anyways, best book ever. Lots and lots of useful things. Okay, plug-in for the book. This is second edition. I don't know if there's a new one. Wound Care Made Incredibly Visual, second edition. And then I also used to like teach an InService on wounds. This is probably more than you want to know. But my favorite stuff in this are like the handouts. So I just pulled my, what did I do? I hit my keyboard. I picked my favorite things out of like when I was studying for wound nursing stuff, and like this kind of stuff. You won't probably use this now, but it was like a little chart on like, you know, charting the wound bed, the wound edges, the drainage, stuff like that. So that was cool because you could just pull keywords. It's like, you know, pick what you want. So maybe someday in the future you'll want that. And then treatment, like dressings, right? Everybody calls things by their brand name. Like you would call Kleenex or facial tissue Kleenex. You would call adhesive bandage a Band-Aid. Like, you call it by its brand name. So it's very confusing when you get into the world when they're like, give me an Aquacell, give me a Tegaderm, give me a Mepilex. And you're like, what the heck are they talking about? I don't know what any of this stuff is. And they're all like, I mean, those things are all different, but there can be different names for the same thing. And it all boils down to like alginates, hydrofibers, foams, hydrocolloids, transparent films. And then in there, they have like a bunch of different names for stuff. I'm sorry, I don't do PowerPoint. I just hold stuff up to my iPhone. So I don't think you need this at this point, but just know that it's going to sound really overwhelming if you end up in the world of wounds. And, but it's not. It's pretty simple once you get down to it. The difference between undermining and tunneling, that's something that people get wrong all the time. And then I do really well with analogies. Like I think Kelly's going to share with you, or has shared with you, something about a grapefruit on how to stage pressure ulcers, you know, like, and so I have one called apples to ulcers. So I like it when they're like, a wound is like an apple, you know, when it's bruised, it's a stage 1. When it's got a shave, it's stage 2. When it's got a nibble, it's stage 3. When it's down to the core, it's stage 4. If it's all obscured with stuff, it's unstageable. But a lot of the times people are calling things pressure ulcers when they're not. Number one, if it's not caused by pressure, it's not a pressure ulcer. You're going to see a lot of what we used to call it incontinence-associated dermatitis. That's like booty rash. And now we call it moisture-associated skin damage. And they're always changing the words, but it's the same stuff. So that's people call that a stage 2 pressure ulcer all the time. If it's not over a bony prominence, and they're usually round, it ain't pressure. Sometimes it's on a bony prominence and it's like linear, that's friction or shear. You know, it's not always pressure. People love calling things pressure ulcers because we are just like, we teach so much about pressure ulcers, but it's like there's a ton of other reasons why skin breaks down. So again, I don't know. Okay, I'm talking too much. Anyways, shoes are a good example of the difference between tunneling and undermining. There's so much. Hey, I love wound care. It's the best. All right, so here's a bunch of stuff if you want it. You can email me, I'll give it to you. What's an average day in home health like? So home health is the bomb. Like, it's the best job in the whole wide world. Like, I leave work for work every day and I'm like, I cannot believe I'm getting paid a lot for this job. I get to drive in my own car and listen to podcasts all day, and I get to go into patients' homes. They're not always the best homes, but I go into patients' homes and get to sit with them in their environment where they're comfortable and they're relaxed and they're gonna listen to what I'm teaching them. My interventions are gonna go a long way when I'm in their home. Things that they're told in the hospital aren't always able to be carried out when they go into the home setting. Like, someone might be asking them to do an activity or exercise, but when they see that their home is completely hoarded and they can't move their arms, it's like, we got to get a social worker in there to take care of some of that first. So it's really like old school nursing, meeting people where they are. And so I'll see like 3 or 4 patients, and you get to spend time with them and make like real change in someone's life. It's so rewarding. Topic 4, most rewarding career ever. And home health is growing. And so if you want job security, wounds, baby. Ostomies, baby. It's only going to get more woundy out there. And home health is massive growing right now because people don't want to be in the hospital, especially during, pandemic. But, and medicine kind of used to be like this. Like, we used to treat people in the home. So I ain't knocking the hospital, but I'm also kind of ignorant to it because I've never really worked in the hospital. I've always worked in home health because, like I said, it's the bomb. Okay. I already talked about LVNs doing a heap of wound care. And so did I even talk about wounds? I kind of talked about home health. Kelly, you can tell me if you want me to make a new video, but wound care, it's amazing. I can go into super detail on all of it, but very, very rewarding. You heal people, you salvage limbs, you bring in new things that heal. You physically, literally get to see your interventions at work and changing people's lives. Like, you do a little intervention and then things are different, and you change people's attitudes and outlooks. And I think that wound care is like, I love it. I'm a big cheerleader, obviously. Okay. Oh, by the way, I work for the Wound Care Council. No, I'm just kidding. So the number one thing I guess I would want to tell anyone who is coming into this field of nursing is watch out for burnout, guys. In nursing, you have a problem, an intervention, and a goal. And your job is to recognize when there's a problem, develop an intervention, and then you have to kind of let go of the goal. Like, you have a goal, but that's not your responsibility. The goal is the patients and their advocates, and you can advocate for them too, but getting to the goal is not your responsibility. Problem and intervention are your responsibility, but goals, and when you become attached to a goal and you feel like you are responsible for getting them there, and that's gonna suck your soul and leave you depleted. And I found that out the hard way. So it's like dragging a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. There's going to be a lot of things you do where the patients, it doesn't go your way, and you can become defeated. So I encourage my horses to drink from the water, but if they choose not to, I also have the respect that that's their decision, if they're capable of making that decision. So my name is Vanessa. I'm a home health nurse. I'm a wound nurse. And my dogs are getting Nancy for a walk. And I can make more thorough ones of these if you want. But click like, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.